Souls. This is Maria here from Earth Angel of Christ, and I am here along with my mentors, Karen and Barry, and they are from the Way of the Christ and Birthing the Luminous Self. All those websites will be linked down in the description box, along with all our emails in case any of you are wanting to take a look or wanting to contact any of us with questions you might have, or to find out more about the Universal Christ work that we share. I'm also wanting to share with everyone the books that Karen and Barry have written, which will really have helped me along on my journey as well. It's a trilogy that collectively are cohesive, but can be very much read independently and understood perfectly fine without having read one before the other. Those books are Soul Awakening, The Journey from Ego to Essence. The second book is Agents of Grace, Fulfilling Our Destiny, Blessing the World. And book number 3 is We Are the Awakening Christ, The Birthing of the Luminous Divine Self. And I will link where everyone can find Karen and Barry's books down in the description box below. Excuse me. And I know they are listed on their website, if I'm not mistaken, but and I know that they are all also available on Amazon as well. I will link our Facebook pages, where you can find those books on their websites, on Amazon. All that good stuff will be down in the description box, so be sure to take a look down there. There'll be all sorts of goodies for you. All that being said, today our topic is going to be our third part in our Twin Flame trilogy of talking about, them specifically, but also what a Twin Flame mission together might look like, and what it looked like for Karen and Barry. And perhaps maybe anybody else that they know that they can give examples of. And basically what happened, because on the last video we left off, guys, on you just coming into where you were getting together or just about to get together, and maybe you guys could start from there and start telling us how that union started to meld together and the things that you guys started to experience and how everything unfolded from there.
Well, you probably remember, everybody who's watching this, that in the last video we talked about how we were brought together, basically how God brought us together, because it was nothing that our human selves could have ever come up with. And so you might remember that the way we first saw each other was as light. We didn't see each other as human selves. We didn't have a normal, whatever that is, human relationship. We didn't date. We didn't go through any of those normal things that most of us have experienced in relationship and that we had experienced in previous relationships. So the way that we were brought together was totally divine. It was nothing that we could have planned or made happen or orchestrated from our human selves at all. And so,
it was an immaculate conception, right? Connection. An immaculate connection is all I can say.
And so what that meant was that the divine was in the driver's seat for the whole thing. It wasn't anything we had anything to do with on a human level, which was completely scrambling to our minds and our human selves, because always in the past we had fallen in love with someone, or fallen in infatuation with someone, or thought someone was really cute, or all those human things were what motivated our connections in the past. And we had both been married before, so obviously it was going a little deeper than just infatuations. We had both been through a lot of different transformational moments and phases in our relationships, as we described in that earlier video. But this was in a league of its own.
It literally came in a literal flash and a metaphorical flash in the middle of that health food store.
Right.
Flash.
Right. So as much as the light was what brought us together, and obviously we were both extremely drawn to whatever that light was, but we didn't have a clue really of what that was. But there was something totally intriguing about it, and our souls were definitely activated by that, even though we just had no framework for what to do with it, and certainly on my part, no idea of where it could go or what it might mean. But in the same way, the divine, as soon as we were actually able to live in the same place, and so I had left my entire world and my marriage and everything, and had moved to the island of Kauai to live with Barry, the divine took over immediately on that too. So I'll turn it over to Barry. He can tell you a little bit about what that was like initially.
Well, I think where I'd like to start, refer back to this, this flash of light, because it was really significant. That was the first thing that happened between us. Usually the first thing that happens in any relationship or anything tells you pretty much about it. And literally what happens when two twin flames get together is, remember, they came out of the Godhead together. They're both really two wholes of a greater whole, the totality of God, right? So they go on this journey, and when they come back together again, they reunite. Essentially, there's a connection. It's like plugging right into the energy of the Godhead at a physical level, at a human level. So it's like the connection with the monad, the I am presence, whatever you want to call that source level of being, is immediately activated. You know, whether your consciousness is ready for it or not, you're going to download that level of frequency, which is the highest frequency that can be downloaded, which is why most people don't go to their twin flame. You know, if you're still struggling pretty much with your ego personality stuff and you're working at that level, when that light comes through, what it will do is it will amplify all your distortion, and you'll be all over the place.
It'll be right in your face, 24/7.
So it's inappropriate for most people to be together. Karen and I did a lot of work before we got together.
And we had that willingness that you have, Maria, and we knew that our soul evolution was everything.
Yeah.
Even though we might not have called it that in the earlier days of our lives, but we knew that we were here to wake up, that we had some purpose to play in the planet's waking up, and so that was going to be revealing itself too. We'll get to that in a little bit.
So, to me, I knew who Karen was. As soon as I looked into her eyes, I saw myself. And then later that day, I just knew that she was me. It was the same essence. What I was experiencing in my own realization of myself, I had never experienced that same experience of essence when I connected with somebody else. It was always different. This was identical, absolutely identical to my essence. And that was how I knew, because I knew I was connected with the God in me, my true self. So then I could know that was the same over there. So that's how I definitely knew who it was. Although I hadn't expected it, I didn't even know how I would know. I wasn't thinking about a twin flame, but it was like, wow, here it is, So I guess what I would say, I had given up relationships before I was on a God realization path. I didn't care about relationships or women or sex or anything. I was like going to God. I was basically a full renunciate when she came into my life. So I think for most people to understand, unless you have that kind of consecration, that God is number one, you are not going to make it in a twin flame relationship. I can almost guarantee you, because it's all about bringing that light of the monad, bringing that light of God down and incarnating it. That's the whole purpose of twin flames getting together. So if you think it's about really, and it's been a wonderful relationship. I'm not trying to say a lot of other wonderful things don't come at a human level. They do, many wonderful, wonderful things. But if you think it's about that, you're going to be in for a lot of disappointment, and you won't stay. You won't stick it out, because it will basically dissolve all that stuff away.
Yeah, I mean, what happens, especially in the early stages, and I mean, we don't have a big sample to draw from in terms of what this is like for other people, because we have hardly ever met anybody else in this type of a connection.
That stayed together. We don't stay together.
Normally, the few people we have met were very unusual pairings.
Yeah, very.
That, would not have picked each other out of a crowd to be like, oh yeah, that person's exactly my type.
Yeah.
And the same was true for me and Barry. On a personality level, we looked at each other when we really started to get to know each other, and we thought, that person's not really my type.
Yeah.
That's not the type of man or woman that I'm usually drawn to.
Yeah.
And there are many things about the personality level that rubbed each other the wrong way.
Yeah.
And so that stuff came up immediately. Because God was basically saying, if you want to wake up fully, if you want to be free, and if you want to embody love, here's all the stuff that's in the way in each of you.
Yeah.
And you need to deal with this. If you don't deal with this, you are not going to embody love more fully.
I have a question. Did you find that your stuff individually was mirrored back to you by the other?
Oh, yeah.
Like in no other relationship you can imagine. It was like a 1,000 times more than anybody you've ever met. Because what happens is, remember, you're both parts of the same whole. So in your individual journeys, you're always in connection whether you know it or not. And you're developing things, but you always can carry you're the mirror image of each other.
You're the complementary other whole to the whole that the other person is. You complement each other in every way.
Perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. I mean, it's like two pieces that fit together like no other two pieces. And if you think your piece is this, and that piece over there is the opposite of you, what do you think you're going to do in relationship to that piece? You're going to go, that piece is strange and scary, and it threatens my peace.
And it might even be trying to destroy me.
And trying to destroy me, right?
It might even be trying to wipe me off the face of the earth.
I'm going to lose myself, my sense of self around this person.
I'm going to lose myself around this person.
And that's what goes up immediately. I guarantee you, when you meet your twin flame, wherever you have that identity, where this is who I am, this is the way I am, what my life's about, how I think, my values, that person's going to have stuff that's going to be opposite.
Like any way that our egos are going, this is how I have to have it. And we all have like a huge laundry list in our ego selves of how I have to have it.
Right.
Well,
picturing it is kind of like when you learn in school about cell division. Because I think a lot of people think of it as this person's the other half of my soul, like they're only half a person almost.
Right.
But it's really like when a cell divides and they're two whole cells.
That's perfect. And there's that interface where they're crossing over, they're intersecting. And that's the amazing love that you experience. That's at the, at the heart of it all. And that amazing light, which was what we saw in each other immediately. It's like there is that intersection. There is that place where you are both part of one larger being.
Yeah.
And you experience that in your clearer moments.
Yeah. You
experience that oneness as never before. But in the non-clear moments, you experience what a friend of ours said when he first met us. We hadn't known him before, but he showed up in our lives maybe a couple of years into this experiment that we were on. And he said, you two are coming from opposite ends of the universe. And he goes, no wonder it's so challenging for you guys. Because he could see what we were going through. He was a really wise, beautiful man that looked at us and went, whoa, that looks very intense, what you guys are doing together. And we went, yeah, we can't even explain the half of it.
I wish I'd have known what to say to Roger then that I would say now and say, Roger, you're right. We're coming from opposite ends of the universe. But you know what? We both want to go beyond the duality of operating from one part of the universe and be able to be fully conscious in union with the totality of it all. And that's really what these relationships are about. Because she carried the parts of God that I had not realized in my own nature. And she was deepened in those, as I was in ones that she wasn't. So in essence, we were the greatest gift to each other to open us up to whole parts of ourselves that we hadn't included as part of who we thought we were. So it was a total doorway, and it took us a long time to get to that point. But once we began to realize that was a profound moment of shift when we realized this is my greatest gift. because I don't want to live in this limited sense of self. I don't want to live in this, this little tiny ego space where, that stuff over there is different from me.
And it has to be my way, as I was
It has to be my
saying
way.
earlier.
Yeah.
So basically, a way that it comes into my mind to language it is Barry carries the dormant parts of me,
Yeah.
and I carry the dormant parts of him.
Right.
So being around me started to activate those dormant parts. For instance, when he and Robin were creating the chrysalis, the room of higher dimensional energetics that we were doing our sessions in, they never sat down and ate meals. Ever. They would just grab a jar of nut butter and just, spoon it out. Or they would just snack on rice cakes as a way of life. So I arrive in their little home and I'm making meals. Nobody's interested in these meals I'm making. I'm sitting at the table eating my little meals by myself, and I'm feeling so lonely, and I'm having a few tears falling, and I'm going, where's the nurturance? Where's the feminine? Where's the softness and the relaxing? And they were basically on a totally fiery, the fire from God kind of a burn.
We were barely in our bodies. We were just out in these interdimensional places. I mean, literally, we got to the place, and the boxes, when we moved into this house, the box of the stuff, and we're still open, and we'd only grab things as we needed them out of the box. We never unpacked. We just started in this project and did it we go to the beach, come back, and just work 12 hours and just in this totally fiery place. So here this earthy, watery person comes and goes,
what the heck?
What's going on here,
I dipped into these boxes, and I'm realizing that when Barry packed the boxes on the mainland, he just threw in everything. Clothes, dishes, books. Everything was all jumbled in this massive box, like a wardrobe box. And I'm very orderly. I have a lot of Virgo in my chart, so I'm just going,
here's another
holy moly, what in the world? How does this person even connect with the earth plane? I don't think he does.
That works for me. I just
So in so many ways, we were just what
total
is
opposites.
that way of life? I've never seen that before.
Never seen.
Because in the past, we had partners that were more like us. And they fit on a personality level. And there was a lot of overlap and a lot of harmony and, creating a nice life together kind of stuff. And this is what we were used to, especially me. And so this connection was completely, unknown in every way.
And you see, the gift was Karen came to hold a space. In my life, I would have these bursts of fire like that. All
he
my
is a
life.
fire sign too.
And I would go, it was like a shooting star, it was like Icarus putting the wax wings on and flying to God. I would get up there, my wings would melt, and I'd go down to the earth, I would just get all this fire and air going, and it wasn't sustainable because I didn't have enough earth and water in me, to keep me from self-igniting, So I would have burnt myself out, crashed and burned, and everything if it wouldn't have been for Karen coming and bringing that feminine, nurturing, and helping me see that was not a sustainable way of being. And by being around her, I began to see that. I began to see the gift in that. Just like, when we had to go to Lanikai and do sessions, I was, let's just go do it. Karen was going, well, I don't know how to do that. And, her more feminine, earthy,
cautious,
careful. Just get on the plane, man. We're going to go do it. She goes, I don't know how to do it. Just sit there and do it, And so
I'd never gotten on a plane and gone into a new place and just started working with people. I wasn't even sure I knew what was happening in these sessions. I didn't really understand. I mean, I'd been doing spiritual things before for quite a while in my life, but this way of doing sessions with people and this whole room and everything was like coming from another octave of the universe for me. And so I had a lot of self-doubt and insecurity, but Barry had that fire that said, you are going to be great at this. I know it about you. I can feel it in you. Yeah. You are just made to do this work with people. And you are going to be shocked at what you're able to hold and how you're able to move with it as your intuition starts to come forward. And so he got me through those early days where I was so out of my element and so insecure and had no idea what was happening in these sessions. And when I was very afraid that I would mess something up or mess someone up, it was a very big concern of mine. I didn't want to say or do the wrong thing. And Barry said, just listen for what God and Christ want you to say and trust that. And so I did. I would sit there in the silence through a lot of sessions because I wasn't feeling anything to say. And that was appropriate. That was how God and Christ were teaching me. That when they want you to say something, it comes through loud and clear and you can't miss it. But until that happens, you can just be quiet and hold a space of allowance and of divine sacred energy for that soul to take their next steps.
Does that help to give you a sense of how really totally different natures can be complementary and how it works?
Yeah, definitely. Because I see it as, people that you want to date or tend to date, it's like a puzzle piece, the pieces that fit around your puzzle piece, right?
Yeah.
And your twin is actually like a mirror image of your own piece. So
Perfect, Maria. That's exactly it. That was a good So
whereas other ones kind of fit together, it's like, wait a second, this is me outside myself.
Yeah. And that's why people don't stay together, because what they want is they want somebody that's comfortable and so much like them and kind of like you say it fits into their piece, that they go, well, this isn't working and this is strange and this doesn't feel right. And they leave their twins.
Or this is just too hard.
Too hard.
This coming up against each other's ego stuff is just too challenging. Relationships are supposed to feel good. This feels like crap.
Right.
I don't want it, it might not even be healthy. Right. All those kinds of things can go through your mind. And if you believe all that, and if you, especially the voices that are saying, I deserve better than this. I don't deserve to go through this shit all the time. And I don't deserve to have things be so difficult. And this person is a jerk. And, they're telling me I'm a jerk. And that's not how it's supposed to be. It was supposed to be loving and wonderful. And like Barry told me before we got together, we can have it all. And I kind of fell in love with that, right? Even more than Barry, because
there's your new age.
There's my fantasy.
Your new
I
age
wanted
idea of twin flame relationships.
So I was like, okay, great. I'm on board with that. We can have it all. This sounds great. And then, as soon as we got together, it was like, there's none of it happening. What happened? We were supposed to have it all, and we're having none.
Where's that rose garden you promised me?
and what was happening was really even better, but we couldn't see it at the time.
Especially in retrospect, it's easier to see.
Because we were getting awake so fast. I mean, it was like, and that's why we always stayed together. One of the reasons we goes, God, I would never be waking up this fast. I would never be feeling this connection with God evolving so quickly if we left each other. And that's why I always come back to say, the number one thing is you've got to want God more than anything else to stay in a twin flame relationship, because that is what kept us together. God kept us together, and the desire to do God's will and to die to our egos and merge with God and our true selves.
Yeah, when it was really difficult, God would say to me, I would ask about it in meditation. I'd say, what the heck is going on here? Why is this so hard? And I know I can't go back, but it's very hard to stay in this picture right now. And God would just always say the same thing. Just stay with it. It's going someplace. And I'd be like, well, when? I want it now. And this is too hard. And how long do I have to wait? And I could feel all the rebelliousness in my ego just going crazy. But I knew that voice. And that voice was what I lived by. And I just had to keep submitting to it, even though it was really hard.
And in the meantime, we were doing our session work with people and doing things, and amazing things were happening.
Oh, yeah, beautiful things.
Well, had you been in that doing this work before Karen came into the picture?
No.
Very initial stages, people had been coming.
We weren't together yet, but it was the Kundalini Awakening in Kauai when we were both on the island together. I hadn't met her yet. And then the Office of the Christ came to me after I met her and asked me to work with the Office of the Christ, and I received the robe of the Christ about a year or so later. Everything happened after we connected.
Can you give a quick definition of what the Office of the Christ is for everybody?
The Office of the Christ, it's one way to talk about the planetary hierarchy that surrounds the Earth, grouping of ascended beings some extraterrestrials, and some beings who work for the Office of the Christ who are still in physical forms, like Karen and I. And we're basically the ground crew. We just work for Christ. It's like we do what he tells us to do and carry out his missions. And it's in our books. If people want to know more about it, this isn't the time. Read our books. It's all in there in great detail.
The first book tells a lot of the stories about our coming together, and the third book is all about working with the Christ and the Office of the Christ. Yeah. And basically what would happen in every single session was that we were taken deeper into the awareness that we're not doing these sessions.
Yeah.
We would call ourselves facilitators, but God and Christ were doing everything. Mm-hmm. And we had so many challenges in those early days. We had people showing up that were completely possessed.
All kinds of stuff.
One woman I remember in particular, and in her session she was like screaming at the top of her lungs.
Oh, yeah.
And we thought, we hope the neighbors aren't home. We hope they're at work, because it sounds like somebody's getting axe murdered over here. And we hope the police don't come. But we knew that like something in her was just like fighting so hard to keep control of her. And we didn't know what to do, especially me. And so I'm just calling to the Christ and looking over at the big picture of the Christ that we always had in the room. And just going, Christ, you have to do what needs to be done here. We have no idea, no way to do this on our own.
The miraculous was happening.
And Christ would.
That's the point. Miracles were happening all the time.
Yeah.
Our life became just a never-ending, just jaw-dropping, wow, I can't believe just what happened in sessions, in our lives. Okay, for instance, here's an example. We had to get stripped away of a lot of things materially early on, and it was God and Christ doing it to make us realize that our identity and security and everything was not based upon these outer things in our life, like even a car. Okay?
Or a home.
And it took us to more faith, just surrender and faith to God. So at one point, a year or so after we were together, we're living in this little town down near Mount Shasta. We had no car, none. And we had no jobs, nothing. We didn't know how we were going to pay our rent month to month. And I remember one month we were just like a week away from having to pay our rent. We had no money. The clients weren't coming. Nobody knew us in this little town. Some guy came, did a session with us. He said, you gave us back our soul. Wrote us a check for $5,000 and left. Stuff like that was happening all the time. I'm in that little town. Okay, so I'm like really homesick for Kauai. And I say to Karen, I go, oh God, I miss the island so much. I had to get my Papasan chair. I love that. And she'd go out on her little bike for garage sales. That's the only way we could get anything. We couldn't afford to go buy stuff at regular stores. She'd go out on her little bike and we'd get things. She went out. I just had this big lament about that. She went out, she came back and she goes, you never guess what I found. We walked around the corner. Here's this beautiful Papasan chair right around the corner from our house so we could just carry it back to our house. That kind of stuff was happening all the time. All the time. It was so miraculous what was going on, and we could see. We called it peekaboo God. That's the cycle of our life, peekaboo God, because we think, where are you, God? We don't have a car. We don't have this. And then all of a sudden, God would go, peekaboo, here I am. Here's your Papasan.
We'd be whining, and we'd be saying, I deserve so much better than this, and we're supposed to have it all, and that's what awakening is. Awakening is having everything.
We should be rich right now. We should have 2 new cars and a nice big house and everything.
And so all this stuff had to be shaved away and shaved away and shaved away. And we were rebelling, and then we were going with it, and then we'd rebel some more, and then we'd surrender into it more deeply. Yeah. And this process went on for years.
Yes.
And, gradually we began to realize that every bit of that experience was a gift. It was all exactly what we needed to turn our focus away from how I have to have it on the earth plane to how God wants me to have it on a spiritual plane that filters down into all aspects of life. And which would I rather have? Right? Mm-hmm. We were constantly being really tested on that and asked about that. What do you really want? What are you putting first in your life? A new sofa or God? Right. A car or God?
It's easy to put God first when you have all your comfortable stuff around you, and
Yeah.
You know, it's challenging when you don't.
Really
It
true.
shows you where you really are. That's what it did to us.
Yeah.
It really, the relationship showed us where we really were, what we had to let go of, you know, and we wouldn't necessarily had to let go of those material items. It wasn't God taking material items away from us just to test us. It was the only way we could let go of the attachment. We had to have the object disappear to let go of the attachment. If we wouldn't have the attachment, we have everything we really want or need now. We have so much abundance. I have never felt more abundant in my life. People would look at my life and they might not think that, but man, my life is like really abundant. Even when I had many more material things, my life is so abundant right now. But we wouldn't have gotten to here. We wouldn't have gotten to this if we wouldn't have had that consecration to stay together in this God-centered, God-focused relationship and let God take these two rough pieces of clay and mold us into something that could come together to form something that is so much bigger than the individual pieces. And that's what it's all been about.
And that's where it comes into the mission, because as our energies began to harmonize more and more fully, we were able to experience more and more of the creative potential of God pouring through us. And so, you know, what could happen in our presence became so amazing to us. I mean, we've always felt totally blessed by being a part of every single session, and especially the ones where the major awakenings happen that are so far beyond what anyone involved could have pictured, could have believed was possible. And
we've had a lot of those miracles in my sessions.
Absolutely,
you know what it's like.
Absolutely.
Directly,
Just to walk together has been such a beautiful gift to all of us. And that's what happens as the two energies combine to become one greater energy. So much creative force, so much of the power of God, so much of the love of God comes through you. So that, you know, these incredible things can happen. Things people would call miracles become every day. And anything that we really want just comes to us.
Yeah, we don't.
It just comes.
I attest to that too. Ever since I started working on this level, it's like it's not just miracles in sessions, there's miracles everywhere.
Everywhere.
That's it. And you get
Everywhere.
it. You get it now. We couldn't have
You
got
walk
that.
in that energy and you walk, you're living it.
Yeah.
Yes.
You see it. It's because this is what we tell this to people again and again, but it's so hard to really get it because you haven't experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
Your outer reality, you can't change your life by moving the pieces around outside yourself. It's impossible. Because what's out there is a holographic reflection of what is inside of you. Mm-hmm. So if you're clinging to a bunch of fear and doubt and limited ideas about yourself and the world and little me, well, I guess that's going to be your movie. That's the movie of your life. But when you're surrendered and God is what's living through you, well, then the divine is just appears all around you as synchronicity, as magic. We stopped even trying to think about what we wanted. We got to a certain point in our life where we realized no matter what I would vision for my life, my little mind is too limited compared to God's. Because God, we get these ideas, we'd want something, and God would just give us something else that we go, wow, that's so much better than anything we could have ever thought for ourselves.
Right. So
we stopped even thinking about it.
We don't even do creative visualization or any of that stuff. And everything that we need, everything that is the next step in our path just shows up.
It's just here.
How it shows up is always amazing.
Yeah, it's even better than if you went and figured it, because it's like Christmas all the time. Like, what's going to happen tomorrow? You don't know. Yeah. It's just going to show up.
And peekaboo God in action.
Yes, peekaboo God. Peekaboo God.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I love that. And so, everything that's, like, our particular mission is about helping souls awaken and get back in touch with who they really are. And so every step of that journey has been given by God, and we go, okay, God, what would you like us to do next with this? Yeah. Write a book, offer some groups, do teleconferences, do sessions, or some mix of all of the above. It all just falls into place. Yeah. That's the best way we can say it, that as you shave away, as the ego defenses are shattered and dissolved, the synergy that happens allows whatever it is that is your mission together to just simply unfold.
Yeah.
And you will just be taken into it. It's nothing you can sit together and have meetings about and plan. It doesn't operate like that at all. But it is purely given to you as inspiration. And you feel the divinity in it all the time.
That's awesome. When you guys met, you guys were talking about, you guys mentioned the chrysalis and how you guys, how did that come about? Did you get that information on how to build that from, why don't you explain a little bit about what the chrysalis is for people? Because you had mentioned it before. And
okay, well, the first, I was living in Taos, and after Christ came to me and asked me if I'd work with the Office of the Christ, and I received the robe of the Christ. And I gave my life in service to Christ. In other words, I gave the steering wheel of my life over to Christ. Whatever Christ tells me to do, I do it, because I always know it's the best. So the first job was to build this big 50-mile diameter crystal pyramid around Taos that consisted of these 6 crystal grids that I built. So I went to Arkansas, bought these crystals, built these pyramids. Christ would infuse them. That's another story. It's in the books. And after that, he said, well, okay, now this can be used for individual awakenings, because these crystal pyramids are going to be everywhere eventually. And it's interesting. People are building them now. We've heard from some woman, other people are building crystal pyramids recently. So he said, just take these crystals and go to Kauai with Robin, and we'll show you how to build this. We're going to give you this whole interdimensional thing on sacred geometry, crystal energetics, the subtle mechanics of awakening, all having to do with the upper chakras and all that. So all this, I was just instructed. I would get these books. He said, read these books. And I sit in Kauai, and I would just sit there, and they would show me. I would go up, and I work with a number of ascended masters, and they would explain all these things. And then Robin and I would actually build this. We'd get the ideas, the blueprints, and then we would say, okay, this is what we have to do, and then we'd build it. And we slowly built this thing that turned into be this room that was basically a bed, not too far off the floor, and there were energetic devices, crystalline devices that worked underneath it that activated the 2 source points for the auric field, the earth star below the feet, the soul star above the head, and one at the Kundalini center. And it totally balanced the polarity of the aura, opened up to allow the Christ self, or the higher self, to slide into the body. It created a coherent, there was 6 crystal grids around, or 6 crystal stands around it that formed this pyramid. And when you're in it, you were lifted up into the Christed domains, and your Christ self, your oversoul, could slide it right into your auric field. So people could have these immediate experiences of their oversoul. And it worked, We took.
Oh, it was so coherent that people would completely bypass all their ego resistance to opening and awakening. Yeah. And they would experience these infusions of the vastness of who they were. They would see beautiful geometries, and all sorts of things would happen. Some of this is in the first book, Soul Awakening.
Yeah. I remember reading about it.
Yeah, some people were just taken out into the galaxies and had these incredible experiences of their vastness and the vastness that's available to everybody. So yeah, this was all happening.
It just happened because I couldn't have done that without this connection with Karen, because together we held a big enough space, a high enough space, and a coherent enough, aligned space with both of our energies to allow this to happen. It wouldn't have happened without that balance of the twin flame energy. So twin flames out there, if you're with your twin flame or you're about to meet your twin flame, that's what's going to happen in a unique way for you if you're willing to die and keep to who you think you are and keep just letting the divine infuse you and unfold your journey. This will happen, but there's no way you're going to do any of this. It's just going to happen. It's going to happen most of the time despite you, probably. It will happen. You just stay.
and you may not understand what's happening.
Yeah.
I didn't understand at all my role in the process, and I was very self-deprecating, which tends to be my tendency. And so I was just always in the early years thinking, well, this is all berries, and where do I fit into this? What am I even doing in this picture? I don't understand a thing about this. This is like a mad scientist over here coming up with all these things that are completely like not something my mind is equipped to even grasp, okay? And so it was very easy for me to think, well, it's all his, and I'm some kind of accessory to this whole thing, but I don't know what I'm doing in the middle of this. And God, did you put me in the wrong picture or what? Because it doesn't seem like anything about myself that I've known previously has a role here. And yet now I can understand, and through years of Barry's telling me this, and my going into it myself in my journey, that there needs to be a deep feminine matrix, like the womb of the belly center that we'll talk about in future videos, that holds all the creative potentials that eventually get born in our world as outer manifestations. There has to be this womb of creation that just nurtures and gestates something until it's ready to be manifested. And that was my role, even though I didn't even know it was happening. But it was just my energy tends to be so much that way. And it's a role that's rather hidden from view. So it's very easy for us to discount it if this happens to be our role. And it often is a feminine role, especially if you have a lot of feminine energy like I do, and deep, watery, earthy energy. That can tend to be your role, but others don't see it. All they see is that big, shining, fiery presence that understands it all and is talking about it and making it and doing it. And it's more the outer and the inner, another one of those seeming polarities that gets united in this dynamic relationship.
And it's balanced now. It's really balanced
Much
now.
more balanced.
At first, I did do most of holding the energy and the talking and explaining.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't
now
have known
you can
what
see,
to say.
when you're in sessions with us, it just goes back and forth. Sometimes she's doing all the talking and I'm being really quiet.
Very, symbiotic. And you guys are so different, but so vital to the process. I enjoy working with each of you individually, but there's something about working with you guys together that it's just amazing. Like, you guys hold space in totally different ways, and both of your parts are completely vital to the process that's happening. It's really amazing.
It is to us too. It is. That's why we love to work together. We do sessions separately sometimes, but we love to work together because the synergy just teaches us so much and takes us to new levels of our evolution.
It's magic.
Every time.
That's
It is magic.
Another one of the things, what happens when you're together. It is so magic and so amazing. This synergy, it's addictive in a positive sense. You want more of it. You want to see, where can we go with this?
Yeah.
It's better than anything you can imagine.
It's like you guys plug into each other energetically,
and then God just works through it in such an amazing way, way expanded beyond anything each individual could do or experience.
That's what I would say. That's another one thing. You're going to love that. Once you get to enough to the point where you can see the gift of it, and really go, this other who's different to me is a gift. This is a gift, and I'm going to open myself up and let go of my little rigid ideas of things. Then you start to spiral. Once you start to spiral like two butterflies going up and up, it just goes zoom, and off you go. It's like,
because you catalyze each other's awakening and evolution more than any other being could possibly do.
Never do.
And we see that on a daily basis.
It's true.
We work with the Course in Miracles, as you know, and so we'll be reading the daily lesson together. Let's say at night before we go to sleep, we'll often review the day's lesson. And the things that we each will say about that lesson are so revelatory to the other person.
Yeah.
Like, I hadn't seen it that way. Oh, that's great, thanks, And that happens on a daily basis with everything.
All the time.
So there's this amazing creative synergy that just kicks in. And, it's there. And what we find over the years, we've been together now 28 years, I think we figured out the other day.
29 this year.
29 this year, okay.
I think.
And what happens is the huge process of the ego dissolution recedes into the background.
Yeah.
Because we were willing to go with that completely. We were not holding back and saying, I don't want to do that. I want to hang on to my ego. That wasn't us. So it was able to happen very intensely, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And now where it is occasionally little bumps come up in the road. But they're just like little speed bumps.
Yeah.
And we're able to talk about them and move through them very rapidly. There's not like the days and weeks of agonizing and separation and discord that we experienced in the early days.
Yeah.
Now, the vast majority of what we experience is that creative synergy and just that sense of love and respect and trust that love is what's really holding us.
Yeah, love.
And that we go deeper into the divine together all the time.
Yeah.
It's just, there's no end to it.
It's love.
It's not like you get to a place and okay, you're there and now you're just going to be on cruise control for the rest of the incarnation. It doesn't work that way. There's always a new place to go to when you're with that person especially. It's true in all relationships, but it's especially true of this one. That's all I can say. It never stops.
It never stops.
So that's amazing to hear you guys' story. So besides your mission together, do you know, can you give examples of maybe other twin flame couples that you know and what their missions look like?
I wish I could.
Yeah.
We don't know.
I wish I could.
We don't know any that are really engaged doing their mission. We know ones that have gotten together briefly and gone apart. So, let me just consider this for a second. Do I really know anybody that's doing their mission? No, I don't.
I don't know anybody that I get the feeling is in that type of relationship.
Yeah.
We know a lot of friends and clients who are in more of a soulmate relationship.
Yeah, they're soulmates, which is great.
And many of them are having a very smooth and easy time.
Yeah.
Pretty much, they'll have their challenges come up occasionally, but their relationship did not go through all that ego shredding that ours did. They were very harmonious. They had a wonderful time together. Their lives together flow. They support each other very easily. They didn't have all that divisiveness and separation stuff that we had to work through. So it's a whole different feeling just being around them. They usually don't have a mission that they're doing together. Their work was separate. They had their own creative avenues. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's much more what we've been around. And so they haven't understood what we've been going through, especially in the early days. They all thought, you guys must be crazy to stick with that.
We saw one couple in Mount Shasta. We went to a gathering. Yeah, I remember one couple, but I didn't know them. They just gave a presentation, and it was like, yeah, they're twin flames, and yeah, they said the same thing we said. And they had been doing work with people was at the yoga center.
Oh, I remember that.
And they have been doing work with people for quite some time. Very fulfilled, successful, and they were definitely twin flames, and they were definitely on it and really doing it. And it was everything that we told you, they would have told you the same thing.
So they went through the ego shredding and all of that, yeah. And we talked with them afterward, and they were really happy to get that kind of reflection from us because we were older than them. And they could see that, we stuck it out. We were still together. We had gone through the same exact process, but it hadn't taken us apart.
And they didn't know anybody else that was going through what they were going through either. And we were really able to help them, as Karen said, because to affirm that what they were experiencing was perfect. It was
normal for this type of relationship.
Normal, and just keep going. It's going to be just great.
Yeah.
And there are no other mirrors for what you're not going to find mirrors for what you're experiencing, probably. But just trust and keep listening. And the magnetism, the presence of God is so strong, bonding you together. I think if you're really meant to be together in the twin flame, God's omnipotent. You'll stay together. We had to be together, and God kept us together, and God was always doing it. So, and the love was an unconditional, really divine love that held us together. That no matter how painful it was, how shredded I felt, I go inside, And there was this all-encompassing love that I felt for this being that would be nothing like I had ever experienced for anybody else. And I could never for a moment envision not being around that. And today, in this moment, it just keeps growing and growing. And you know, there's not any need in that. You know, there's nothing of that. It's just, it is. You know, if Karen tomorrow said, I have to go, I won't be seeing you again this lifetime, I would be sad and everything else. But that love would still be there. And there wouldn't be any sense of separation from her, you know, whatsoever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that would happen.
I don't think it would happen ever, no.
I can't picture that happening.
No.
But in all the times when our egos were trying to get us to believe that this is some kind of weird punishment you're in here and you should really extricate yourself, our souls would always come back in and make us aware that, no, this is not what you think it is. This is a great gift. At the moment, you're identified with your ego. But what I would say is the greatest gift, or one of the greatest gifts, it's hard to quantify, of this type of relationship is that if you want to shift your identity from your ego to your soul and your vast multidimensionality, this is the fast track to doing that. Because every way that you're identified with your ego will come to the surface. Yeah. And if you're willing to surrender it, even after all the whining and the temper tantrums and the stuff that you go through, if you're willing to go, okay, God, I don't get it, but if you say so, I will go with it, then you will just be brought closer and closer and closer into that oneness. Yeah. You will just drop into that ocean of oneness more and more and more fully until really, in the end, that's all that's left.
Pretty much, yeah.
And now when our ego stuff comes up, we're really able to stand back from it. One of us is usually able to really stay centered in the soul and in the vastness and go, it sounds like your ego's just up. We can help each other to see it.
What are you feeling? We're friends together. In other words, when somebody's having a hard time, even if it's in relationship to each other, we're able to sit in this space of love and connection and friendship and say, well, what are you feeling? Let's just look at this together. What happened and what was that like for you?
Yeah, what's going on inside of you?
And what's going inside of you?
Because that person is lost at the moment.
Yeah.
Whichever one of us it is, the other one tries to hold that space. Yeah. And say, we don't have to spin out in that. And we don't choose to spin out in it. I think we did when we were much younger, because everybody's pretty addicted to drama. When you're ego identified, that's what the ego feeds on, is drama. And, as the decades have gone by, we have no interest in drama anymore. And so that also helps the sessions to go much faster, because we're not feeding that addiction in anybody else either. We're just wanting to go straight to the divine. And so they do too.
We could go on, but we spent a lot. People are going, this is a long video, so I want to be conscious of that. And
I just have one more question. It seems like the heights that this twin flame union can actually go to is in direct correlation with your own process of self-mastery.
They're one and the same. The height and the depth, and I would say the height and the depth are equal. You can only go as high as you go, as deep as you can go.
You have to be willing to dive into the depths of your suffering and all the stuff you believe that is not true, that your ego trying to convince you and all that. You have to be willing to look at all the ways you judge each other. Yeah. Because one of the things I wanted to say, and maybe this is a thought to leave people with, is, we often say that the opposite of love is fear. And I can see that. That makes a lot of sense. We've looked at that too for years. But lately we're seeing, and the Course is really helping to bring that home, is that really an opposite of love is also judgment. And that every time we are in judgment, we are not in love. There is no room for them to coexist. So if I'm judging Barry in any way at all, my love, the flow of the love from me to him is just truncated. And until I'm willing to surrender that judgment and realize it's in me that the problem exists, it's not something in Barry. If only he'd change, it would all be great. That one. We all have that one coming out in spades in relationship. So that's all judgment. And so as we shave off those judgments too, the love just is what's been underneath all of it all along. And then it can just keep flowering.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be very humble with each other and recognize those little ways that we can judge each other that cause separation.
Mm-hmm.
And the gift of a twin flame relationship is because there is so much love and so much light that you can't get away with it. It's like a lot of people, you just kind of slide by it in day-to-day life. It hurts so badly when you're not in love, when the love's not there and your soul starts to close down. It's just unbearable for what it feels like. You can't hang out in that. You have to resolve it. You have to get back to love. You can't deal with a feeling of separation between the two of you because you are one with God together. And that's an incredible gift, really. It's painful, but it's also an incredible gift because it keeps propelling you to love. It keeps propelling you to claw down the veils of judgment and separation and get to unity together.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much. This has been great, and we got some really good stuff here today. And thank you so much for sharing everything. And I want to thank everybody for watching. And like I said, check out the description box. All our information will be there. How to get Karen and Barry's books will be there. And there'll be all sorts of good stuff down there.
Yeah, also, if anybody out there is watching this video and you would like to connect with us directly about this or anything else that you're encountering as you awaken, this is what our lives are all about. And as you've heard, I mean, the synergy between us is such that when people get in our presence, a lot of transformation happens pretty fast. So, yeah. Ask Maria, come to us. We offer a free 20-minute consultation where we can just talk with you about what you're experiencing and share together and see if there is some kind of synergy among us, if there's a sense that we should go on together and explore what's happening in your journey of awakening or your relationship that you think might have something like ours going on. We are here for that, totally. So just be in touch with us. We've got the information below, as Maria has said. This is what, and leave a comment. We love to hear from you. We will do our best to respond to the comments. And thank you, Maria, for drawing all this out of us. You're a wonderful interviewer, and it was great to share all this with everybody.
Thank you guys so much. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.
Namaste. Love and blessings to everybody.